Hey, 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 Brannon Beliso here, and welcome to Success Never Sleeps. It's Friday, March 24th, 2022, and this show is all about helping the small business owner and the martial arts school owner live from purpose and create profitability, right? If you don't have a profitable business, you can't sustain it. You can't take care of your team. You can't do the different things you want to do in order to be successful, right? We need to be successful. I get that. I know I look like a ghost, but let's see if I can fix that for you. I keep working on this on my side. Ready, magic. Is that magic? Let's see. Let's see. And as you come aboard, say hi. Tell us where you're tuning in from. This is actually a new camera, and this new camera's just not been being nice. So as you come aboard, say hello. Tell us where you're tuning in from, and let us know. Let us know. And make the effort to please share this with as many school owners as you can. Super important. Share it and share it and share it some more. Because I think it's real vital that we spread the word of disruption. Right? I mean, our purpose is to create something new in not only the martial arts industry, but I think with the movement at large throughout the world, businesses are more conscientious of making sure we're sustainable, we're growth oriented, we take care of our teams, we really serve and give back to our communities in a big way. You know, if I think about me, and only me, then that's why I feel like, oh, it's lonely at the top, nobody understands me. I don't want to live my life that way. It's so much fun surrounding myself with like-minded people that really want to impact our communities, make a difference, and truly do something special. And I say this all the time. I think everybody here is special. You really are. And I know we see those memes that run around Facebook all the time. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what you think. Nobody cares what you feel. No one cares who you are. That may be true. But you know what? I care. I care about me. I care about the choices that I make. I care about the food I put in my mouth. I care about giving back to my community. So yeah, when you post something on social media and people just shoot you full of holes, that's okay. It's really okay because they don't live your life, they don't pay your rent, they don't feed your family. But don't let that deter you from recognizing that you are a miracle. And if you recognize that, you wake up every day and you invest in that miracle, which is you, and you truly make that effort to grow things, right? You do. All right, so let me thank my sponsors, and let me fix this camera again. Is this going wanky? Man, I thought I had this thing. All right, so first of all, my studio, lots of new upgrades. You know, I'm so passionate about the relationships that I'm in, and I love to. Tule is one of my buddies, and I think my studio is simply the best product out there. What I love about the folks at my studio, you'll see, they never do things like, you know, which CRM system do you love and why? And then they launch into, you know, their whole little thing. I know that's a social media tactic, and that's cool, and if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But I love the integrity of the people at my studio just for that reason alone. They really focus on the product. They've invested millions of dollars into making that product better, and it'll continue. And they are disruptors. For example, the event I'll be at in July in Washington, D.C., where Kukiwan is doing their first international event like this. Who are they partnered with? My studio. My studio just created a partnership with Judo USA, right? Over 300 partners. That's brilliant. That's really moving in a direction that is something beyond what other people have been able to do. So I applaud them. Kids Love Life Skills. You know, we just released our newest character development badge, empathy. Empathy. And I said that to a parent yesterday. They walked through the door, and I handed them the student parent discovery sheet. Because, you know, of course, I asked this new parent, what do you want your child to learn? And they said, well, I want them to learn focus and discipline. So I pulled out these two handouts with the badge attached to the student parent discovery sheet. And I said, I handed them the student parent discovery sheet free. And I said, this is one of the things that makes our environment so unique. You won't get this in soccer. You won't get this at the school they go to. You won't get this at swimming or gymnastics or anywhere that your child goes. And it's this type of learning that is the reason why parents see us as an investment for their child, an investment for their child. And for me, that's powerful, right? That's really powerful. And you really want to position yourself as a character development educator in your community. As kids are coming out of this pandemic, and now they're experiencing this war because social media is everywhere, how can they help but not see it? Really, our kids are suffering. mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So to really help them develop a skill set that goes way beyond kicking and punching. And I'm challenged when the school owner will tell me, we teach more than kicking and punching, right? That's what they tell us in the associations to say. And you do that, but you don't do anything to cultivate that. Again, I'm very challenged by that. So it's something I'm going to ask you to look at and be mindful of. Cool? And then, of course, LC Accounting. LC Accounting, who is led by my sister Letitia, amazing soul. I'm gonna see if I can fix this camera because it's making me nuts. Tish, I love you. I love what she does, especially for me and my business. You know what she does for our industry at large. Letitia's a gift. And I know I don't say that enough, but I'll say it some more, and then I'll say it some more, and I'll say it some more. Letitia's a gift. I love my sister. I love what she does for us and the industry. And there was a time, you guys, she didn't do martial arts at all, just so you know that. She didn't do martial arts ever, ever, ever. But now she's a martial artist. And I think that's really freaking cool. So this camera's going to go out for a second, but don't trip, okay? Just stay with me. And then last but not least, Market Muscles. I mean, Market Muscles, Stephen Reinstein. I don't get to talk to you enough, sir. I love you with my heart. What they've done with Market Muscles, and I've shared this one openly with people, because I know with social media is only sustainable if it can sell advertising space, right? So social media is going to tell you it's the end all be all. Social media is going to tell you that, without advertising, without paying to play, that you will not be able to grow your business. Well, here I am. We haven't ran any Facebook ads since last, I don't know, about a year now, somewhere in there, about a year. And we've only had the Market Muscles website. And I remember last August when we signed up 115 new students in 1 month between two locations. Stephen came back and said, hey, industry, really pay attention though. Brannon Beliso ranks #1. Both his schools rank, in the top 10 on both platforms. They're active at their Google business page. They batch out pictures. They get reviews. They post constantly. They have a friends and family group page. They have an Instagram page, not TikTok, because I don't think that's audience. But I think it's again data, and maybe we are an anomaly because we are established in the communities that we serve, and we're very mindful of that. So when it comes to Market Muscles, if you don't have a Market Muscle site, you need a Market Muscle site. Cool? And I can't say enough about Stephen. So the other thing I got coming up, folks, is the It's Time Live Believe. That's my event. Right now, we're only booking the 4 days because I really find the impact of being here for 4 days in a retreat environment where we do everything from personal development, writing systems, working on your culture, refining your brand, staff development, curriculum development, all of that. All of it needs to happen. Make no mistake, you're only strong as your weakest link. And I've done it. I just did it recently again. I farmed out all my social media, and I was working with a company, and it just didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't move my needle. I didn't get any results. And, but that's okay. Again, it's more data for me. And so producing these events, which I do a couple of times a year, It's Time Live Believe is really for you. You are your best investment. And if you're willing to make that investment in yourself, the potential of what can happen is powerful. So I'm going to encourage everybody. The link's in there. Marco posted for you. Join us. We only have 12 spots left for It's Time Live Believe. And for those of you with phones, whip them out. There's a QR code right there. See? Use that QR code. Scan it right now and get signed up for It's Time Live Believe. Or the link is sitting there in the comments. Now, I'm really big on this because, the gentleman who wrote Profit First, Mike Mikowicz, I love Profit First. It's something that drives our business. And he sent me a poster, on this nice wooden board, and he sent me his latest book. And it said, I trust wallets, not words. And that's important to a certain degree, because if you're going to teach me how to invest or want to invest my money, then I'm going to ask you this question. Let me see your portfolio. If you're going to talk to me about being successful in running a successful martial arts school, I would at least hope you're running one currently. Not that you used to and you've left it completely and all you do is consult. I would like to know that you are somewhat of a hands-on owner sometimes, or at least not an absentee owner, and you are out there in the trenches to give me real data in real time of what's going on right now. So I'm very transparent with our numbers, and I think that's important for us because it builds trust, right? I can blow sunshine all day long, but the bottom line, if I'm not producing, then whatever ideas or whatever processes I share or whatever philosophies or strategies I give to people, they are really useless. So anybody you choose to work with, whether it's social media or whether it's a lawyer or whether it's a plumber, anybody, I want references. I want real social proof. Now, I don't mean a posted social media. I can run through Canva and make a real cool ad slick and make up a bunch of stuff, and we know there's tons of that. I remember a decade ago, there was no misinformation. There was no fake news. And I beat this one like a dead horse because, we're out there every day. And so here we are. San Francisco, 65,000 right now, and we're only in March. We're not done yet, and it's 465 members. Millbrae is 101,000. That's crazy, right? And the month's not even over, and we're at 473. Now, somebody said, why such disparity between the two locations? Well, Millbrae has an after-school program where we charge $762 a month, and we're running close to 40 people in that program. So there's the difference. Also, we're finally seeing the camps in Millbrae start to book up for the summer. So that's why you see a little bit of discrepancy, because somebody said, wow, it's only got what? 8 more members than San Francisco, but look, it's almost double the revenue. So please be mindful. But either way, if you look at San Francisco, would you be happy with those numbers? Put it in the comments. Would you be happy with those numbers? I think so, right? I think anybody. Hey, Ricardo, what's happening, sir? Welcome. Welcome, Ricardo. I see a lot of people sitting up there in the eye in the sky. Please say hi. Let us know you're there. Right? Stand up and be counted, as I would say. And so that's why I've shared my numbers transparently for years. My books are open to my team. My books are open to the industry. Anything that I do that people question or challenge, I'm happy to share because you should question me. You should challenge me. That is cool. You should. It's the right thing to do. Cool? So those are our numbers. And if we continue at this pace, we're wrapping up the first quarter. And if this first quarter is an indication of the rest of the year, now remember, we came through the variant, the Omicron, and now the potential of inflation and gas prices and the war. And we're still sustaining, right? We're still sustaining, and we're on a path to do $2 million between our two locations. So I feel very blessed. I feel very grateful. These are pre-pandemic numbers. And, for us, it's a good day. It's a good day. It's a good day all day, every day. So today's show, grit. The number one skill for success. If you get a chance, watch Angela Duckworth's TED Talk on grit. It's powerful. It's so powerful. And why am I so huge on the personal development part of the martial artist? Well, especially the martial arts school owner. I'm huge on that because in all my research, in all my study, in all my data, I recognize that there is a lot of good information out there. There really, really is. There really is. There really is. There really is. And there's a lot of good stuff to move the needle and help you be successful financially. But I find the biggest challenge in the martial arts industry for the small business owner is the martial arts school owner themselves. Now, many aren't willing to admit that, and I'm okay with that. That's your choice. But I had posted a video a while back where I talked about, does this apply to you? Simply, does this apply to you? And I asked, did you come to the martial arts because you were bullied? Did you come to the martial arts because you had low self-esteem and needed confidence? Did you come to martial arts because maybe your mom was a single mom and you're looking for a father figure, right? Many people, and I'd say the larger percentage, answered to me yes. So in some ways, the martial arts school owner is broken. And yes, I can give you a system. I can talk about curriculum development. I can help you develop the brand. But the one element that was missing from my coaching was the personal development element, right? So I spend a lot of time cultivating information about personal development because I've gone through my own life journey with that over the decades. But really, how does that personal development apply to a martial arts school owner? Because we are a different animal, right? We really are. And it is grit. Grit is number one. Number one. And so watch that one by Angela Duckworth. I really think it's powerful, and it's one that you should watch. Cool? Let me hope this is the right slide. Great. So grit. What is grit, right? We've watched the movie True Grit, right, with freaking John Wayne. But grit, fundamentally, by definition, is the ability to stick to it until successful, even in the face of adversity, failure, and disappointment. Right? Dalai Lama says it so well. It's easy to be great when things are going your way. Can you be great when life is difficult? That's what's going to build your character. That's what's going to cultivate grit, right? The one thing I think I feel really blessed for is I believe I am built for stress because I was born into a stressful environment as a child, right? From the age of 11 months to about 4 or 5 years old, I was in a foster home. Then after that, my parents got back together briefly. Then my mom left my dad for his best friend. My dad was physically abusive, mentally abusive, and verbally abusive. And so through that, I built up this grit. I really did. So I was born into stress. I was born into adult situations very young. Now, for some people, two things happen out of that. Either it makes you or it breaks you. For me, it made me. I welcomed this pandemic because what am I going to do? Climb on a pity pot and cry? No. So we used it as an opportunity. It was that grit that allowed me to stick to it through the pandemic, even in the face of what? Adversity, failure, and disappointment. You know how much I failed through this pandemic? Understanding and learning virtual, which there was no data on, looking at a distance learning camp, looking at teaching in a parking lot, all of that. All that. We failed so much, but through that failure, our grit level got stronger. My team is probably more unified than we've ever been, and that's because through my leadership, I displayed grit. So that is grit. Ask yourself that question right now and put it in the comments. Do you have the ability to stick to it until successful? And that's a big one. When I work with school owners, I worked with this consultant and it didn't work. So I went with this consultant, it didn't work. I went with this consultant, and it didn't work. Right? The one common denominator through all three of those consultants is what? You. Can you own that? Can you really own that? If you've been through 3 or 4 marriages, and every time all you do is blame that partner you were with, and I've seen that. Someone's on their 5th marriage, and they're going, yeah, well, the other 4, they did A, B, C, D. But whoa. One's finger pointed at them. What about the 3 pointed back at you? True grit is taking accountability for my failure in this relationship, for my inadequacies. So you as a business owner, you as a small martial arts school owner, ask yourself that question. Do you have the real grit? And that real grit sometimes is sucking it up and raising your hand and saying, I'm wrong. I'm sorry, team. Looking at a parent going, you know what? I made a mistake. Are you in that position, and are you willing to do that? Put it in the comments because it really does begin today. Let's see. Who else is joining us? Hey, Rebecca. What's happening? Ada. What's happening, Ada? Ashton. Conrad. Yeah, you are. You're either the weakest link or the strongest link. You are, sir. And I'm willing to own that every day because I think just on a human level, that is my path to self-improvement, right? If I'm willing to take ownership of my own inadequacies, but to do so, what I'm talking about is when you admit you're wrong, you don't beat yourself up, you don't, I'm awful, I'm terrible, everybody hates me. That doesn't work. You know what to say with a sense of confidence? I was wrong here. That's cool, but I still love myself. So let's pivot, team. Let's move. Let's do what we got to do. That's so important. And if you can really recognize that without living in a state of shame. See, that's why most leaders will not say, I'm wrong here. Let's change gears. Let's go another way. They'll go down with the freaking ship when what they ought to do is be ripping that ship apart and rebuilding it right beneath people's feet, or using that ship to get everybody off the boat safely. What do? Like in Titanic, they're standing at the helm. And so they mistaken that for grit. That's not grit. That's stupidity and ego. That's my ego saying, I'm not willing to admit I'm wrong, right? I'm not willing to admit I'm wrong. Stay with me. I'm going to fix the camera again. So ask yourself that question. Do you really have that grit? Do you? Ask yourself that question right now. Do you really possess the type of grit to pivot and adapt and to adjust? So for me, a big part of grit has always been deeply rooted in humility. Is to be humble enough to say, I can do and be better. Are you humble enough to say, I can do and be better? Are you? I don't know. I don't know. So ask yourself that question. Now, grit, the thing I love about grit and my own personal experience of grit is that grit drives. Grit drives. I mean, it's the freaking fuel. It drives achievement and success. Without it, talent and intelligence are limited. They are limited. And my papa would say that. One of the great things he did teach me was, he would say, as far as being a martial arts instructor, I would rather have the kid with 2 left feet than the kid with natural talent. You know why? The kid with 2 left feet has grit. That kid with 2 left feet will work harder than that kid with natural talent. And they will not give up. And that's why talent and intelligence, they're limited. You could have the most talented person in the world, but because they suffer from a fixed mindset. They suffer from a mindset of debilitation, and they don't even realize it in a subconscious. They'll never possess the type of grit that's going to help them achieve a level of success in line with their own personal values. Cool? So again, put your questions in the comment. This is very personal. It's time. I mean, success never sleeps today, and I want you to get a lot out of this. Because as we're coming out of this pandemic, and I'm working with school owners more, not virtually more, with my mentoring and my wisdom program, I am witnessing that. And that's probably the most challenging part for me, is that the mindset is why you don't succeed. Grit is not something that happens just because you wake up with it. It's something that you cultivate over time by implementing a certain skill set and practicing it consistently to develop grit. Grit is not just something, you pop open and drink like a bottle of water. Grit's not something you buy a t-shirt with and send. Grit's not just a meme you pull off Pinterest. Grit is something that you truly spend years and years and years and years and years cultivating. And I know at 60 years old, grit has been my best friend since the time I was a knee-high to a grasshopper. Cool? So what are your thoughts? Put them in the comment. We are a collective. I want you to be part of this experience. Cool? All right, so let's jump into this. And this is straight from Angela Duckworth. As I shared, I would encourage you watch her piece on grit for kids. It's just one of the best things out there. And she's really become a leader in an expert, I would say, in grit and how it works. So watch that by Angela Duckworth. It's a great TED Talk. So practice. See, that's the big thing. Practice. Practice is a big part. So practice defined is learn as you go. That's it. You learn as you go. And it's from the experience and the process. Because really, grit is not going to happen just reading it in a book. Grit's not going to happen. I meditate. I have grit. I have grit. I have grit. No way. Absolutely not. Grit is something for me that truly has come over time. And it's learn as you go. And if you recognize the value of grit and why you need to have grit in your life, then you will truly make that investment to cultivating grit. Cool? So practice. Write that down. Practice, right? Practice. You need to practice having grit. So anytime I'm faced with adversity, I pull up my bootstraps, I dig in, and I like it. I don't mind adversity. I don't mind the resistance. The resistance is cool because I know it eventually gives way to that path of success, right? That relentless ability to stick with it until you are successful. So many give up 5 minutes before the miracle. 5 minutes before the miracle. I witness that all the time. I've seen that meme at Facebook where, the guy is digging the tunnel, right? And he's like this far away from getting the pot of gold. And the other guy gave up and he's walking away. That's an example. That's a perfect picture of giving up 5 minutes before the miracle. Cool? 5 minutes before the miracle. And again, if you recognize you are that miracle and that you are worth it, then you will put in that hard work. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. You will put in that type of effort. It's yucky. It's funky. It's funky to say, hey, man, one of the big things we're doing right now in Wisdom is we are looking at people's curriculum and we're revamping it. And the level of resistance that I'm getting from people, I get it. It's the one thing you've trusted your whole martial arts life is that curriculum. For better or for worse, it's the one thing that was there that gave you confidence, gave you discipline, saw you through some rough times, breakups, everything, right into your martial arts business, on and on and on, right? But for my Wisdom clients, we wouldn't be working together if you were happy where you were at, right? And so we've really got to be willing to look at that curriculum. It's just like our relationship. My relationship with my wife today is not the same as it was 15 years ago when we got married. It's totally different. We have kids and businesses. We're older. Our mindset's different. So if I stayed the same way in my relationship with my wife, if I expected it to be exactly the same as it was 15 years ago, I would be divorced right now. That's a fact. That's a fact. And I bet a lot of you could vouch for that, right? For all of you. See, I don't want to keep it the same. I love my wife. So I'm willing to forego my ego and the complacency that came with what it was 15 years ago and morph and adapt and roll and boom through 2 kids, challenges, pandemics, I'm willing to do that because my value is my love for her. So it's the same thing here. If you really love your curriculum, this is a prime example of grit. If you really love your curriculum, you'll do everything you can to evolve it and keep it relevant so that it doesn't die. Like we teach Kenpo. I know for a fact in our system of Shaolin Kenpo, I own the 2 biggest schools out of anybody that owns a Kenpo school. And I have not come across any Kenpo school yet that has the number of students that we have. I think I saw one with 150, maybe. Now, if that's your version of success and that's your vision, that's cool. That's cool. But it took a lot of grit for me to stand up to Big Brother in our Kenpo world and pivot and make the types of changes to make sure that our Kenpo is relevant and it will be here for 40 years from now. So my example of that works really, really well is now I've positioned TJ to take over the businesses when I choose to walk away, right? I've positioned the business where TJ has a great business, a profitable business for at least the next 40 years. It took a lot of grit to stand up to the higher ups in our industry, in our particularly Kenpo, and say, hey man, I don't know if what we're doing is right here. None of us can grow schools past 150. Nobody's making a great living off of this. So that's an example of grit. And I was committed to the practice of the martial arts and evolving it to get to that point. So think about it. Everybody here that loves their martial arts, do you have enough grit to evolve it, to keep it relevant, to sustain it, to grow it for the next 30, 40, 50 years? Or is it going to die with you? My papa's school has not opened since this pandemic. 2-3 years later, and I don't believe he'll ever open again. And that's sad. He had a school for 50 years, 52 years in the same location. And he did it his way with 100 students, but because they never evolved their curriculum ever, it's still the same way. That's why they're where they are. Is that where you want to be? And if you don't, and you truly love your art, just like I truly love my wife, then I'm willing to grow, evolve, adapt, and that's where grit is, it makes the hair stand up on my arms. Because it's very humbling, folks. It's humbling. Let me check the comments. Hey, Adam, Empower Martial Arts all the way across the pond in the UK. Hey, Adam, sir. Good to see you here, folks. All right, so purpose. Purpose. Purpose is powerful. Purpose is anything you can develop an interest over long term. Right? A lot of us, the martial arts found us, right? We started out because, again, no confidence. I stuttered as a child, right? You do martial arts, you become a black belt. It's something purpose. You develop an interest in over long term. You want to test your purpose? My purpose is to live your best life. And I do that all over the world. I do that on a scale that I never imagined because it didn't happen in a day. It didn't happen. Sometimes I think this whole consulting thing, it found me. It wasn't the other way around. I never set out to consult anybody. I never set out to, speak in the industry and do any of that. It's just when we cultivated the first location into $1 million location without contracts, upgrades, belt testing fees, black belt clubs, all of that. Well, the industry took note going, wow, that's a trip. Let's see what this person has to say. So I get that, but it was only over time that my purpose developed, my interest in wanting to reach more than a 3 to 5 mile radius of a brick and mortar location and really create something new, right? And I think that's the misconception. People think I want to fix and change, and no, I don't. I don't. The industry does whatever you want to do. What we're trying to do with the disruptors, what we're trying to do is build something new. And that requires grit, a lot of grit. A lot of grit. Because those of you who are close to me, I get a lot of criticism for what I do. That's okay. You know why? Because I have the grit to endure the criticism. That's okay with me. I'm cool with it because my purpose, live your best life, is much bigger. And live your best life, understanding that purpose has really been the foundation of my grit, has driven my grit. Does that make sense? Put that in the comment. And if you have any questions, please. I know this type of subject can be a little cerebral for people, but you know what? I think it's why the majority of our industry suffers, right? Much like the world, 1% of our industry makes the majority of the money. I sit in that 1%. I've sat in those rooms. I've talked to those people, right? I've been with them. I've stand side to side with them and speak at events. And the 99% is my interest. The hoi polloi, the common man, the small school owner, who still suffers and doesn't reach that level of success they truly deserve. Cool? And then hope. Hope, wow, is learning to embrace failure as an opportunity to learn and improve. Because you know what? On the days I suck, on the days I have 2 left feet, on the days I'm just like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest, it's on those days that I have to find the light in the darkness. I have to have hope. And I'm going to tell you, when I walked outside the school, and that must have been, 2020, right? 2020. And it was like the summer of 2020 when the fires were going on. We were totally virtual. Millbrae looked like freaking Universal Studios. It looked like 8 or 9, God, it was crazy. And the fires were so bad, I walked out at 12 noon, and it looked like midnight. Midnight. And I stood there for a second, and I had to ask myself, is this the end of the world? That's a very scary place to be in. Because if you truly thought it was the end of the world, what would you do? Well, we know what some people do. Now, I've never been suicidal, so this isn't a cry for help. But imagine when you wake up and you decide you're going to kill yourself today. And it happens all the time. But I stood out there for a brief moment, and I looked up in the sky, and it would look like midnight, and I could smell the smoke, and it was so much uncertainty. So much uncertainty. And I look back in this surreal situation of, my whole team teaching virtually 8 different stations. I stood there for a minute and I asked myself, is the world ending? And if I didn't have hope, I don't know which way I would have turned. I don't know which path I would have walked down. So it's so important for me to cultivate hope in everything that I do. And that's why I always use the analogy of Buzz Lightyear. Remember in Toy Story when he found out he was not a space ranger, he was actually a toy. And he couldn't fly, right? He could not fly. And then he said, well, then I'm falling with style. That is an example of hope. And if I can embrace that, for me, failure, just because I fail does not make me a failure. Write that down and really embrace that, right? Just because I fail, it does not make me a failure. And once I get over that, because that's why, Conrad told me, when he talked about analysis paralysis, I had never heard that before until Conrad gave that to me. What happens is we're afraid to fail because people will judge us. We're afraid to fail because we appear lesser than. And God, for the head of the school with your black belt and master and whatever title you have, to fail, man, that's a huge no-no, right? That's a huge no-no. But I'm going to tell you, once you can get past that, I failed, but I'm not a failure. And it really becomes an opportunity to learn and grow. Mistakes are just what? Lessons waiting to be learned. And once you really wrap your head around that, you have the grit to see through the mistakes and learn what you need to learn, go through course correction, and create your version of success. Because what is grit? It's just seeing it through to success. Through no matter what happens, the shortcomings, the fires, a pandemic, a war, it's your ability to stick to it. That is what grit's about. But make no mistake, you need to be smart. Don't go down with the ship. Don't be a dead horse. If you know your choice was a wrong choice, are you going to sit there because you're stubborn? You're filled with ego? You're not willing to admit you're wrong? That you're going to go down with the ship and bury your business? I don't think so. True grit is willing to say, I made a mistake. I failed, but I'm not a failure. Let's go this way, folks. That's great leadership. That is the type of grit that I believe in today's world, business and relationships and working with kids, everything that is necessary to help you as a person personally, but to help you as a small business really come into today's new norm. Me and TJ talk about it all the time. We are a business in infancy. That is it. We are a brand new business, right? And our ability to recognize that instead of egotistically saying, no, we've been around 22 years and I'm Brannon Beliso. And oh, man. I'm going to tell you, it's only because of grit and the humility that went with the grit that we are here, profitable, growing, sustainable. I know some big mega schools that are gone, and we're a bigger school, right? Our platform's bigger. The fact that both our schools are here and relevant is a testament to our grit. So the fact that you're all listening to this right now, you still have a school. That shows you have grit. But the new level of grit to face this brave new world and the new norm is going to take an open-mindedness, a willingness to step out of that box and to truly look at what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. Cool? Let me just check my comments. Cool. And if you have a comment, put it in there. Put it in there. And I chose to do this very personal, Success Never Sleeps, because it's just amazing. Because it's very uncomfortable and it's very messy. What you'd rather do is hop on some marketing thing right now and find out how to get 10 more students. It's irrelevant because you will lose those 10 and the 10 that you have because you don't have the real grit, the real grit. And I'm fine, again, with all my decade of working with school owners all over the world, they suffer from a mindset. And so a big part of my work is I'm extremely passionate about helping you, the small business owner, the small school owner, cultivate the type of mindset. And grit is a huge, huge part of that. Huge part of that. So put your questions in the comment. They're important to me. They are relevant. And it's something that should be mindful of, okay? Put it in there, please. Hey, Eric Roach. What's happening, Eric? Long time, sir. I'm going to fix this camera one more time. See, I'm trying to stand really still so my camera doesn't get all out of focus. So stay with me. How's everything going, Eric? I hope it's good, sir. And so, I'm going to continue to talk passionately about this. There's a reason why I don't know how many millions of people have watched Angela Duckworth's talk on grit, at social media, right? It's powerful. It's really, really powerful. But we don't invest enough into this. But the results that I'm witnessing is Liam Richards, Excel Martial Arts, right? One of my clients, 450 students. David and Anna Marie Jung, 400 students. Andre Mavis in Germany at Believe Martial Arts, 440 students. It's happening. So this movement where I work with you on personal development hand in hand with writing systems, with writing processes, with all of those schools rebranded. Liam Richards rebranded to Excel Martial Arts. Andre Mavis rebranded to Believe Martial Arts. David and Anna Marie Jung rebranded to Uplift Martial Arts. So I'm so grateful that they were open-minded enough, they had the grit to forego their complacency where they were stuck to move this way. And those schools are big numbers, right? Those are big. Those are big schools. Well, Andre Mavis has 2 schools. Liam only has 1. David Anna Marie Jung only has 1. But their ability to have the grit to forego their limited mindset is really what's made the difference. And that takes grit too, because we cling on to outmoded thinking, old thinking, because it's familiar to us, right? At least I know what to expect. Year in and year out, 100 students. Year in, year out, I'll spend more time watching TV than working on my business. Year in and year out, I'll sit there playing video games more than working on my business. That is where real grit comes from, is that ability to have the hope, right? Have that hope, to practice and to live from purpose, to cultivate that, all right? And then last but not least in this is time. The time to devote yourself to practice, purpose, and developing, right? Developing from failure. And failure to me is something I embrace like a best friend, because failure is not a big deal. I fail every day, right? I use the analogy, and I use it with children, especially my son who loves basketball. Steph Curry, considered the greatest shooter of all time, only makes like 43% of his three-pointers. Now this season it's been rough, but that means the other 57% of the time this boy is failing. He's failing, but you know what? Every time he misses that three-pointer, what do you think's going on? He's adjusting. He's adapting. And if he has a bad game, he goes into what right away? Practice. Practice. And what is his purpose? Right? To make the shot. That's his purpose. I got to put that rock in the hole. So I get that. But it's that sense of purpose is why you'll watch him shoot. Then he starts hitting. Then he starts hitting. Then he starts hitting. Then then he's in a slump again. But through keeping at it, devoting that time to yourself to practice, he eventually cultivates that. And that's what needs to happen with you in cultivating grit. See, you want a quick fix. You want answers right now. I want a solution right now. Like I've seen the one floating around the Disruptors group. Hey, has anybody seen a drop in leads coming through the door? I think we all have a little bit. There's anomalies, people saying no. But the majority of the industry, again, because as we come out of this Omicron, now we're in inflation, which is the highest it's been ever, I think. Gas prices are up. Also, it's spring break, right? And we're coming around to summer. So that's happening too. Right? So all of that's happening. And of course the war. The war is there. And I won't get into the political situation, but it affects everybody for what it is. Okay? It affects everybody. So what's the thing? Oh, should I run some Facebook ads? Should I do it? That's a knee-jerk reaction to something you should be doing every day. Every day you should be bettering your team. Every day you should be investing in your curriculum review and bettering your curriculum. Every day you should be investing in the culture of your business. That takes grit to stay the course. Now, I'm not saying being stubborn. If I need to pivot and change course correction is a word we've all heard, right? Course correction. Course correction. We're heading down this road. If there's a big giant rock, I'm not going to go like this and slam my head. I'm going to course correct and go around the rock. Well, look at that rock as failure. Look at that rock as your mindset. Look at that rock as an obstacle or a lesson to be learned. Look at that. But I'm not going to be stubborn and go, into the rock, into the rock, into the rock, into the rock. Because all I see is my end game, right? Think about that. And my son had that as a child. He has a type of delayed motor skill where if he saw a toy on the other side of the room, he went straight for that toy. He'd hit things, he'd trip on things, he ran into people, all of that. But you see, what that meant was those were mistakes, those were failures, but he kept his eye on that prize. And eventually he learned to keep his eye on the prize and go around, what was on the floor in front of him. So that's where grit, that time to devote to yourself, to practice this process and your purpose and developing from failure is really the fourth element of grit. So what do we have? Practice, purpose, hope, and time. Take a look at this. Let me move out of the way. Take a screenshot of this one, okay? And I want you to invest in this heavily. Heavily, heavily. Heavily, heavily. Cool? All right, let me take a deep breath here. I want to double back and encourage you to share this with as many people as you can. Tell them to come join the disruptors. Again, I'm not trying to change the industry. I'm not trying to fix it. We're trying to cultivate something new. Just as this is a brave new world, I believe the disruptor is somebody that doesn't want to do it the old way, or, it's kind of like a house. I looked at my house and I re-gutted it and we remodeled it completely, right? And we have a beautiful home now. I don't want to rebuild it. I want to make something new. Right? It's the same thing. So share it. Get more and more people to be part of the disruptors. Cool? And as you can share, as you see, I'm so passionate about the mindset that goes along with writing systems, staff development, cultivating a brand, working on your social media, setting up your business financially for success, budgeting and all of that. But I recognize if you don't have the skill set as a person, as a human being, all those other things are temporary. They're distractions. Whatever ails you on a human level will continue to rear its ugly head time and time again. That's why some of the most successful people are looking around going, something's wrong here. I've achieved all this financial success, all of this notoriety. I have all this success, and I'm so freaking unhappy. And that's where I really went about that path. I was living in the Philippines, #1 song, 3 top 10 hits. I was extremely successful on the surface, but at a heart level, I'd stand in front of thousands of people and play, and I'm going, wow, it's even amplified tenfold. Right? At least if I suck and I'm struggling and I'm trying to get past 100 students, or I was still playing my guitar on a street corner in San Francisco or playing in some crappy nightclub, that's all right. But when you achieve some notoriety and some success and you're still unhappy, you thought this was the end all be all, that's when you understand. And that's why It's Time Believe. For me, the 4-day experience, you need to be there. Make that investment in yourself. You deserve it. You deserve it. So scan this QR code now and get signed up for It's Time Live Believe. 4 days. It will be the best investment you ever make for yourself. Ever, 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 ever. And I promise you that. Ask anybody who's watching this show that's been there, and they'll tell you that. And being mindful to thank my great sponsors. I'm blessed to have people that invest in me, that believe in what I do. They don't censor me. They don't tell me what I can say or cannot. Our relationships to believe in each other is why my studio, Kids Love Life Skills, LC Accounting, and Market Muscles are my sponsors, right? Are my sponsors. And I thank you graciously for that. Cool. So what are your thoughts? Here we are. What are your thoughts? What have you gotten out of today's show? What are your big takeaways? Jason, you got a question there, right? What do you do to help instill grit in your students? You know, that's a really good one, Jason, sir. I believe grit, because it's something we cultivate over time. It's really being present as an educator. So present as an educator, you understand when to push, you understand when to back off, but here's the important one. See, we're really good about that. We know when to push somebody, right, beyond their limits. We know when to back off, right, because they're having a bad day. But you know what you don't look at? When do you pull them along? That's how you instill grit, Jason. When you say, I don't need to push them right now because they're going to break, right? It's having a young sapling, Jason. I say this all the time because I live from the farmer mentality. If I have a young sapling in the ground, can I tug at it and say, grow faster, grow faster, grow faster, bear fruit? No way. No way. Right? But can I pull it along by giving it a little more nutrients, by playing Mozart for it, right? By using, halogen lights, the hydroponic, whatever, phonic lights, whatever. That's the art of being a great teacher. It's not knowing when to push, not knowing when to back off. It's knowing when to pull them along, sir. And if we understand grit is something they cultivate over time, then we're willing to do that. We're willing to make that type of investment, Jason, right? Because I see it. There's always that two extreme. Either it's a school owner who's like the freaking drill sergeant, bark, 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 or it's the, money-making, oh yeah, whatever, time-based student, yeah, sure. You attend a certain amount of classes, you get your belt. And the guy can't throw a front kick, can't do a push-up. The minute something's hard, they want to quit. So you go into babying mode and go, hey, because, I need your money, right? There's that too, right? I like that, Eric. Fail. First attempt in learning. Ooh, that's great, Eric. Everybody get that one. Can we use that, Eric? First attempt in learning. I love it, right? Fail. First attempt in learning. And that's really it, sir. But for me, that's been the art. Sometimes it's like when birds fly. The lead bird takes the brunt of the wind, is working harder than anybody, right? But then once he gets tired, that bird falls out and the next one moves in and takes over, right? That's powerful stuff. So for me, at this point in my career, teaching for, 22 years consistently. Well, I wasn't teaching for the better part of a couple years before the pandemic because I was raising kids, right? And that's cool. I need to do that. That was my purpose in life. But teaching for the better part of my life, I can tell you, it's not knowing when to push. It's not knowing when to back off. Real grit is when I just pull them along. This is the best you can do today? That's okay. Let me hold your hand and I'll lead you, to the promised land. That's really it, sir. That's really it. Cool? More questions. And share your takeaways today, please. Share your comments. James, hey James. Going to drop off in a few to meet with my studio and schedule my call with Market Muscles. All part of the successful rebranding. Yes. Thank you, Professor. Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. I love the people at my studio. Again, the grit to say, hey, we got to be better. We got to do better. We need to listen to you. I think my studio does that all day long. It does. And same thing with Market Muscles. Stephen is a humble guy, right? But you got to know when to back off. You got to know when to push. But again, I'm going to reiterate that. Know when to pull people along. Write that down. Own it. Own it. And share that with your team. Because I've always seen those two extremes, right? That's all that exists. And I don't think that should be the case. Cool? Other takeaways today before we wrap this big dog up? Anybody? All right, and while I'm waiting for your final comments, I'll share with you what I think is really going on in the world today. I'm not in control of what's going on in Europe. I can't affect that. Sure, I can do a social media post, put my political stance or whatever, but what I can do in my own personal life, in my own personal business, is keep methodically working at being the best version of myself. Or do what? Live for my purpose. Live your best life. There's a reason why both our schools are packed, right now. When San Francisco was one of the cities, sixth city where most people have moved away from. 142,000 have left San Francisco, yet we continue to grow. Our county here where Millbury's at, another city where people have left and moved away, yet we continue to grow. Because if we keep consistently cultivating our garden, producing great fruit, great vegetables, there's always going to be a need. There will always be a need. There will always be a need. There will always be a need. But you know what? If the soil is not fertile, hasn't been rototilled, no nutrients, it's dry and funky, the seed I get isn't premium seed, I don't consistently tend to my garden, then I'm not going to produce the type of product, the premium product that Apple preaches from, that people will trust year after year, pandemic or not, war or not, dot-com bust or not, mortgage crisis or not, inflation or not. But I need to be mindful and have the type of grit it takes to stay the course. Now, I don't say that go down with the ship. People mistaken that all the time. I'm saying living from my purpose of live your best life. And if yours is be successful, engage your success, right? Whatever it might be, whatever your purpose is, you are committed to it and you have that grit to say, you know what? My curriculum needs to be overhauled. We're overhauling our curriculum again. And we're willing to do that and not lose the integrity of Kenpo, but we have the grit to stand up to the Kenpo, hierarchy and say, you know what? Sorry you feel that way. But I can promise you, our version of Kenpo will be here 40 years from now, 50 years from now, and it will be relevant, and it will serve a community based upon living your best life. Yeah, but that's not the way our teacher taught, or his teacher taught him, and his teacher taught him, and his teacher taught him. Well, you know what? They're not here, and their schools probably don't exist. What's your point? What's your point? Are we going to live from principles or purpose? Are we going to follow dogma? Or are we going to live from a purpose that is truly rooted in core values, one of which is grit? One of which is grit. Can you take ownership of that? Can you do that? And it takes a lot of courage. It does. It really, really does. And when I made that choice in my life, and I'll end with this one today as we got 2 more minutes, and I share this story passionately. I was up and coming in the industry, right? I was doing all the big events, and so I decided I wanted to be a speaker, right? So I went and took pictures with one of those speaker photographers, right? A well-known speaker photographer. And the picture had me. I was standing like this. My hands were cupped like this in speaker 101 position. I was wearing a suit and tie. And I'm looking at the camera like this. Now, I don't do this. I don't do this now. I've never done this. It's not my thing. It doesn't even feel comfortable. It feels weird. And so I did this, and then I was all excited about the photos to show my wife. So I took the photos home, and I showed them to my wife, and she looked at this, and I'm all excited. And it was like a little kid getting his dream shot down. My wife looks at his pictures, goes, "What the hell is this?" My wife. I'm going, "What? This is my speaker picture. This is speaker 101. And I'm going to post the picture for you guys later, okay? This is my speaker shot, speaker 101, babe. If I do this, now I'm going to move up to the next level. And I'll start getting the paid speaking gigs and yada, 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 yada. I was like, do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do. I was just like so excited. And my wife said, "This isn't you. This is not your truth. This is not who you are." And that's when I decided to stand up and say, okay, this is my truth. I want to create a new industry. I looked at it. I saw the industry. I was making $1 million a year with a 35% net. I'm sitting here in the 1% with a blind eye to the majority of our industry who truly need to be empowered. But I wasn't going to do it by selling you some packaged product that was regurgitated decade after decade. I would have to have the grit to step out and say, hey, you, school owner, need to learn to write social media. You, the school owner, need to rebrand your school. You, the school owner, need to look at your curriculum and make changes. You, the school owner, need to invest in yourself and become great. Because what I saw was, I'm really good on the mat, but, I don't want to do business, so I'm going to farm it out to you, and I'm going to farm it out to you. Look at the great sports figures that end up broke because they don't pay attention to their finances. They're uneducated. All they want to do is box or act or whatever. I think smart business is a Kevin Durant. Andre Iguodala from the Warriors, right? He is a smart businessman. Magic Johnson, smart businessman. It's not a skill set he had coming in the game. He was a basketball player. But he developed these other skill sets to make sure he could continue to impact his community and the world. And that's what I was willing to do. So after this, I tore it up. What you see is what you get. This is it. But I do believe this is my best work. And it was having that grit to go, but I won't be able to stand in those rooms anymore. They won't invite me to the party. I won't have a seat at their table. And that's the big boy table there. And, you know, we all make a lot of money and we can talk about stocks and and that's when I decided to stay here and work with the small school learner and make this movement happen. And do you have that ability? And it took real change. That's it. That's where grit lives and dies from. Grit doesn't follow the path that everybody else does. So you, in your own personal mindset, are you willing to shift it and walk a different path? You, in your own personal mindset, are you willing to stand up to your organization and say, you know what? Our curriculum only produces 100 students. That's not good. Our system's going to die. And to leave you with this, if I try to make my relationship with my wife, as I love her dearly, the same way it was 15 years ago today, if we were trying to behave and act and do what we did 15 years ago, pure and simple, we would be divorced today. So, I shared my humility with you today. I shared my transparency with you today because it is a new day. But if you're going to stay with that fixed mindset and not develop the true grit that it's going to take to create your version of success and happiness, then I don't know what else to tell you. Cool? Hey, folks, I'm very grateful to serve you guys. I'm very, very, very grateful to be with you today, cultivating everything we did in today's Success Never Sleeps. Powerful stuff. Very powerful stuff. So if you dug what went on here today, share it with as many people as you can, please. Let them know about Success Never Sleeps. Let them know about what we do. Let them know about the Disruptor Group. Let them know about the upcoming event. It's time. And truly, truly, truly understand that you are your best investment. Make the investment in yourself and everything's possible. Cool? So thank you to Kids of Life Skills, My Studio, Market Muscles, LC Accounting. Thank you so much to you and everything that you do by supporting this cause. I'm Brannon Beliso. This is Success Never Sleeps. For all of me, follow our podcast. Success Never Sleeps Mindful Meditation. Subscribe to it. Follow me at Instagram. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. For everything else, go to brannonbeliso.com. Until we talk again, please, you go out there, live your best life.